Welcome back to Newsday. Thank you for staying with us. The Senate on Thursday threatened to reduce the proposed 58.472 trillion 2026 appropriation bill over what it described as unrealistic revenue projections, poor oil performance benchmarks, and persistent failures in capital budget implementation. The warning came during a tense interactive session between the Senate Committee on Appropriations and the federal government's economic team, where lawmakers openly questioned the credibility of key assumptions underpinning the record budget proposal. Chairman, Senate Committee on Appropriations Senator Solomon Adiola said the budget document originated from the executive and must reflect realistic and implementable projections. Economist Gbolahan Olojede joins us now to discuss those unrealistic budgets as reason for funding crisis. Good afternoon. Many thanks for being here.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are
First
you?
time we're seeing this year, right? It's too late to say Happy New Year.
It's not too late. It's just February.
Okay, Happy New Year. So let's talk about this unrealistic budgets as reason for the funding crisis. Do you think that this is appropriate?
Well, I think for the current year's budget, it's reasonable to say that the assumptions were much more realistic. Assumptions in terms of the volume of crude we expect to produce, assumption as to what will be the price of crude in the international market on the average. Some of those things we must also admit are difficult to predict. If you take oil for example.
Okay.
If America today gets close to, the war with Iran, the market will react and oil price might go up.
Okay.
If next week they found a solution to their problems and they discuss and they say, okay, no more war, the price will go back to what it was. How many Venezuela, America, Iran's situation or Russia, Ukraine situation are we going to have in the course of the year? Do you know?
No.
Okay, I don't either. And these are sensitive matters that affect petroleum, for example. So the predictability of what the price will be is difficult. But I think what the National Assembly is saying is, since it is difficult, just take the most conservative, estimate and use for the purpose of the budget. Last year's budget, as far as the revenue performance is concerned, was not good enough. I don't want to use very strong adjectives to describe it, because it doesn't speak well when government in the course of the year will say, oh, we have met this target, we have exceeded this other one, we're doing well on this, we're doing well on that, only for us to know that the releases that were made to the MDAs were tiny, 10% in some places, 15, 20% in some other places. So the question will be, so where's all the revenue that came in?
Where?
Yes, sir. So it is part of the accountability that the government also needs to put on the table. This is how much I made, and this is how much, this is where it went into. We not only have our own revenues, we also borrowed money. We borrowed locally, we borrowed internationally. This is everything that's accrued, and this is how it was spent. There's need for more transparency. It would have been better for us to know that this is how much this MDA got, not necessarily at a session with the National Assembly, so that we exactly know the state of the country financials as far as we are concerned. If you think about the fact that this year again, the budget is still around the same figure, and it is a genuine concern for everybody, or everybody who loves this country, to want to say, is it going to be like that of last year? And if it is not going to be like that of last year, then we need to be a little bit more conservative. We need to prioritize needs over wants. They are two different things.
And to your point about transparency, I know that, within the last few days, one story that kind of made a lot of headlines was the Minister of Health saying that they only received, I think, 36 million naira out of a 218 billion budget allocation, and people were kind of, shocked,
scared
that the Ministry of Health had only received such a small amount. I mean, in the context of these conversations around the budget, what do you see this administration is prioritizing, and what are they not prioritizing in terms of the different departments within the government?
Where it all starts, you see, there's a saying that it is a challenge to share 2 chicken laps among 3 elders. Where the resources that you want to share in itself is not enough, then you have a problem. That is where the problem itself will start. So you start saying, okay, you that I'm supposed to give 100, maybe I'll give you 10. I'll give you 5. I'll give you this. So we need to take it back to the total revenue that was recorded vis-a-vis what we budgeted. Don't forget the 200 and something billion or whatever figure we give any MDA was based on what we projected we were going to get. How much we will actually give them now depends on how much did we get from what we thought we were going to get. And how did we prioritize the volume that we got? Which is why I was saying we must separate our needs from our wants and prioritize those things that are needs over those ones that are, and it is a lot of wastage in the bureaucracy. And we also need to begin to see the budget as a planning document. I'm always emphasizing this anytime I have to speak about the budget. The way we look at the budget in this country is as if it is an authority to spend. Yes, it is correct as an authority to spend because the Appropriation Act is a law. So it enables people, it authorizes you to spend. But beyond being an authority to spend, it is a planning document. So everything that goes into it must make sense. The National Assembly that is complaining today, they are also part of the problem. These are the people who, when you send the budget to them, then they plug in all sort of figures, some of them not making sense, no head, no tail. Everybody is saying, no, I want to do constituency project. And they plug all sort of things into that budget. By the time the budget is coming back to the executive, it is bloated by the insertions of the National Assembly. So it shows that even on their own part, while it is good to say, oh, the executive, you're not being realistic enough, are they being realistic with this kind of attitude?
I like how you brought it back to what we're seeing from the Senate now that they're basically sounding the alarms. And they're not the ones that brought us into this mess. But, they approve these budgets and borrowing requests, like you rightly pointed out. How do we hold them accountable for this supposed fiscal crisis that might be brewing?
Who do you want to hold responsible? The National Assembly? I think we should hold the executive responsible for the performance of the budget, and the National Assembly only to the extent of oversight. So government has a way of determining what they call budget performance. The amount of, if I budgeted 100 naira and I've provided 20 naira, then it is said that my the performance is 20%. In the real sense, if you ask me what performance is, it goes beyond the fact that I have parted with 20%. Rather, I want to know whether the 20% has delivered a 20% value. You can part with 20% cash. But when I get to, maybe it's a road or it's a water project, I get there and I found a 1 naira job that has been delivered in that place. So how is that exactly a 20% performance? We have, though this is not the federal government, if you remember the NDIC probe under the last administration, I think over 13,000 projects were found when they did the forensic, for which we have parted with money, performance. But there was nothing on ground, or there was barely anything on ground for the money that has been paid for those projects. But if it is just performance from a government perspective, we've parted with 20% now. So that is
since we looked at those aspects, what about Gbolahan Olojede? These are supposed technocrats, right? That were appointed to fix Nigeria's finances. What do you think that their major problems are? Are they looking at revenue gaps on realistic budgets? Are they part of the problem? Are they facing political pressures? What is the issue?
I think the last part you mentioned is part of the problem. And if you're facing a technocrat, these guys are very brilliant guys as far as, understanding of what finance is supposed to be. But when you are in government, the role now steps a little bit beyond the technical knowledge and understanding. A lot of other pressure come into play, and you have to be able to manage those pressure. I for one, would like to see technocrats who will stand by primarily first that which is right from a technical perspective. And if you must now manage all those other things, the ones that you can push, you can even push them. There is a minister for information, let them go and be whatever. But everybody knows that when it comes to your desk and you speak, that you're speaking with authority, you're speaking from a technical perspective. Leave the politicians to be talking politics. But when it is at your desk, you talk the real thing, as it were. So I think it is part of what they will need to imbibe to stand firm as technocrat. When they communicate, they should communicate firmly in such a way that we can hold them accountable. You said this. Then we must also avoid situations in which we are measuring when an entire year is gone. I think the emphasis should also shift to more activities around the quarterly reviews. So if by the end of quarter one, this is how much of the revenue we projected that has come in, this is what we have been able to make available to the MDAs to execute. If we wait an entire year, we will be up for surprises. It may be at the end of the year that you now found out that, only 25% of what was supposed to have been provided has been provided. Meanwhile, you and I might go out there and say, these hospitals, these are public hospitals, they don't have this, they don't have that. Why are they like that? You didn't know that there was a 200 billion somewhere and that I got 36.
And, to this point of these key technocrats within this administration, if you kind of had to take a step back and look at, just assess the economy, the Nigerian economy today, is it getting better under this administration, generally?
There are good sides to it, but there are also the poor part. The good side to it is, I remember speaking to some, market people some years ago at the height of the volatility of the currency. And what they were saying was that it might take us about 5 years to get out of that problem that we're finding ourselves. But as today, not only has the dollar stabilized, it has actually started on a growth trajectory. Dollar in 2025 started at about 1,530 or thereabout, and closed at 1,400 and something. So he gained maybe about $100 in the course of the year. The gaining has not even abated. It is still going on. When you look at corporate profits also, it has recovered. In 2023, first part of 2024, when you go and look at the books of our corporates, it was all bloody, losses. Today, that has changed. The corporates are in the profit. They've been able to flip all those losses of those years. So there's recovery of corporate profit, which is positive. However, we are playing a lot of catch-up in things like infrastructure provision. There was a recent terrorist attack in one of the, I think this was Niger. And once I was listening to someone, he's a politician from that side, and he was saying, look, a journey that should not be more than maybe an hour probably took the soldiers who were coming about 7 hours to get there. So if a journey of 1 hour will become 7 hours, in the real sense, the terrorists will have had a field day, they will have done what they wanted to do now, and there will be nothing anybody could do by that time. So our infrastructure, we need to be able to step up the growth in that space. I see actions, but I wish that we can move faster than we are doing. I see Shagam Bini, started to do, there's also the Lagos Calabar and all the rest, but there is a lot more. In fact, I like that Sokoto Badagry is in progress as well. We need to be able to move fast on those things. We need to be able to connect centers of food production to centers of food consumption, and infrastructure has a lot to do with that. We need to be able to speak to our healthcare, our education, and several other things, and we're not quite there with most of those, so we're not doing well in some of those things.
You've touched on the need for speed and looking at various sectors, but let's talk about the oil sector for a moment.
Okay.
Corruption is some tag legendary in that sector, from NNPC to IOCs to regulators. Can we fix Nigeria's revenue gaps without fundamentally addressing corruption? And does the political will even exist to do that cleanup?
It's an interesting question. Like the former president Jonathan described that sector. He said, oil business is oily. And in the real sense, it is oily. A lot of graft and all the other stuff are there. But I think things are getting better if we sustain some of what looks like better will, political will to deal with certain matters. So I will take, for example, issues of importation of refined product. It seems as if Mr. Dangote feels more confident today than he was a couple of years ago about whether the country is really open to the private refining of products. And we can see expansion in that space as well. I learned that BUA has a license and is actively building, while Mr. Dangote is trying to rev up from 650,000 barrels to 1.4 million barrels per day to become the largest in the world. So some things are happening. Recently, I think a couple of days ago, the president signed an executive order that says NNPC money, as the thing is coming, take it to the consolidated revenue first. Because there were certain things that have been happening in the past in which it lands on the desk of NNPC. I think there's a 30% management fee that is deducted and all from some of those heads, and then it is the balance that ends up in the consolidated revenue account. The question is the accountability around that part that NNPC has withheld. How was it used? The laws that may be guiding how it should be used, is it being obeyed, and all the rest. Now, with that executive order, there is that could deal with that matter, because the money will now come to the consolidated revenue account. Well, when it lands in the consolidated, this is now the next phase. Mm-hmm. The money that is in that account is shared amongst the 3 tiers of government. So are they going to use it to the benefit of the people, or will it also go the way, the same way we are saying lack of accountability on the part of NNPC? Is that the same way that this money will go? At what point are we going to be able to take NNPC to the market? When you take an NPC to the market and it starts to behave like a proper private sector organization, we are going to see a change, a radical change in the level of accountability. The board will ask you questions. I face my board minimum of 4 times in a year for board meetings. And you have to tell them what you're doing. And they will ask you all sort of curious questions, which I don't think has been happening with NNPC as just another government agency. The new guy that is on board, I see that accountability is improving. Almost every other day we are getting to hear this is the performance of the institution. Yeah, that is fine. For a company that is intending to go to the market, we must continue to see more of that so that people start to know, this is what that organization is doing from a finance perspective. Mm-hmm. So that when you want to come to the market is ready for you. And I can assure you, by that time, people will be willing, ready to take an NPC out of the throes and grasp of the government for so many years to make it into an establishment that could be truly profitable, like the Petrobras of this world, like the Saudi Aramcos of this world, as it were.
Wow. One day.
One day.
One day. Transparency is key. Economist Gbolahan Olojede, thank you very much for joining us on Newsday today.